My name is Olivia and I'm 27 years old. I work as a digital designer at a tech startup in San Francisco. From the outside, my life might look perfectly organized and smooth sailing, like I've got everything figured out. But beneath that polished surface, my family situation is anything but orderly. About a year ago, everything collapsed around us when my father's construction company suddenly went under. It was a devastating blow that none of us saw coming. With nowhere else to turn, I relocated back to my hometown in Oregon to live with my parents and my younger sister Mia. Now my job has become our family's financial lifeline, and I shoulder most of our household expenses. One evening, we were all gathered in the living room when my mother casually announced, "Olivia says she wants to make salmon for dinner tomorrow," looking pointedly in my direction. I let out a deep sigh and replied, "We're seriously stretched thin on grocery money right now. We can't really afford salmon. Could you possibly contribute a bit more to the food budget?" I felt my forehead creasing with worry. We weren't even halfway through the month, and our food money was practically gone. That's when Mia jumped in, her voice dripping with annoyance. "Big sister, you're just not providing enough for groceries." I stared at her, completely stunned by her audacity. Is she serious right now? I thought. What are you talking about? I asked, feeling defensive heat rising in my chest. I already contribute $8,000 monthly. That should more than cover our needs. Mia just rolled her eyes. Big sister, everything costs more now. $8,000 doesn't stretch as far for a family of 4 anymore. I felt rage bubbling up inside me. After everything I do, this is what I get? Fine, I'll increase it to $11,000, I snapped. But if that's still a problem, why don't you actually find a job and help with expenses yourself? My mother immediately rushed to Mia's defense. It's really difficult to find employment these days, she said, her voice soft with sympathy for my sister. That comment left a bitter taste in my mouth. I knew Mia wasn't genuinely searching for work, she just claimed to be looking so she wouldn't have to actually work. And recently, I discovered my mother was secretly slipping Mia portions of the money I provided as her personal spending cash. I've had enough of this. That's it, I said firmly. If things are truly this difficult here, why don't we sell this house and move to Grandma City? We might find better job opportunities there, and life could be less of a struggle. My mother instantly shut down the idea. Absolutely not, she said, shaking her head emphatically. I'm never going back to that place. My grandmother lives in Chicago and runs a popular Italian trattoria. If we relocated there, we could work in her restaurant and at least have guaranteed meals of pasta and pizza. It would certainly ease our financial burden. But Grandma runs a tight ship, especially regarding her authentic recipes, and my mother despises that. She doesn't want to deal with the demanding work environment at Grandma's restaurant. Even my father chimed in, "Why are we so quick to run to Grandma for help? We should stand on our own feet. Depending on her is just taking the easy way out." How dare they call me the one taking the easy way out? I felt my blood pressure rising. I was the one busting my back and funding nearly everything, while my sister refused to even look for work, yet my parents consistently took her side. I suggested that Mia could at least try securing a part-time position while continuing her search for something permanent. She's 25 years old, and countless people work part-time jobs to support themselves. But my mother quickly dismissed the idea. No, she argued. Mia helps around the house, so she doesn't have time for outside employment. What is she talking about? I was completely baffled. I've literally never seen Mia do any housework, I said, unable to hide my disbelief. Then my father jumped in to defend her. Mia brings her dishes to the sink after meals. She does her own laundry. Sometimes she even gives me shoulder rubs when my back hurts. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are they serious right now? The housework they described was barely more than what a child would do. Meanwhile, I woke up early every single morning to prepare breakfast for everyone, packed my father's lunch before heading to my own demanding job, managed all our household finances, and handled our tax paperwork. Yet no matter how much I contributed, my parents still favored Mia. This wasn't new, they had always shown preference toward her since we were children. People often commented that I was attractive too, but Mia was always described as more elegant and charismatic. Because of this, our parents had always treated her with special consideration. I contemplated moving out and leaving everything behind, but it wasn't that straightforward. I couldn't simply walk away, there were too many complicated reasons keeping me there, at least for the time being. So each day, I continued living under this immense pressure, feeling like Atlas with my entire family resting on my shoulders. One day, I realized Mia had been absent for several days. Initially, I assumed she'd just gone out with friends as usual, but as days passed without her return, I grew suspicious about her whereabouts. Then one evening, as I was arriving home and walking toward my bedroom, I overheard my parents conversing in hushed tones in the living room. Their voices were low, but I caught enough to stop me in my tracks. What I heard left me utterly shocked. "I can't wait to see what souvenirs she brings back from Maui," my mother said, sounding excited. "Mia is so fortunate, enjoying a relaxing vacation, spending time on those beautiful beaches and dining at upscale restaurants. I'd love to visit Maui myself," she added, a note of envy in her voice. "Perhaps we should plan a family trip next time." My father nodded in agreement. "That would be wonderful. What is happening right now?" I couldn't remain silent any longer. Confused and angry, I stepped into the room and asked, "Wait, what are you talking about? Are you saying Mia is in Hawaii right now?" My parents looked startled by my unexpected appearance, but replied in unison, "Yes, that's right." I was dumbfounded. "But how? She doesn't have any money." "I've been cutting back on my own expenses just to save for essentials." "Oh, Mia won a trip in a sweepstakes," my mother explained with a bright smile. "She's always been fortunate with contests like that." "A free trip? Well, I guess that makes sense." Though surprised, I decided to let it go. If Mia had legitimately won a complimentary vacation, I couldn't really fault her for that. The following day, while I was at work, I received an unexpected call from my credit card company. Since I rarely used my credit card, I wasn't particularly concerned, just curious. But when the representative informed me of substantial charges on my card over the past 5 days, alarm bells started ringing in my head. I haven't made any major purchases lately, I thought with growing anxiety. "How much was spent?" I asked, my voice tight with apprehension. "Approximately $50,000 has been charged in the last 5 days, the customer service agent replied. Immediately, I knew who was responsible. It has to be Mia. Perhaps she had won the hotel stay and airfare, but she still needed money for everything else: souvenirs, meals, activities. Determined to uncover the truth, I called her immediately. "What's going on, Mia? Explain yourself," I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Oh, surprised to hear from you, sis. I thought you'd be waiting for your souvenir," Mia said playfully. "Stop messing around," I snapped. "You've been using my credit card without permission, haven't you?" Mia didn't even sound remorseful. "Oh, you noticed? It was just a little accident," she said casually. "An accident? Is she kidding me right now?" I felt my anger intensifying. "What were you thinking?" I asked, barely containing my outrage. "Using someone else's credit card without permission is a serious offense." Mia just laughed it off. "It might be a problem if it was a stranger's card, but we're family, Olivia. You really need to understand how families operate," she said, as if I was the unreasonable one. "How could you possibly spend $50,000 in just 5 days? That's absolutely insane." I practically shouted into the phone. "Well," she explained matter-of-factly, "the flight and hotel were complimentary, but I had to cover everything else: shopping, gourmet meals, fun activities. I visited some nice restaurants, bought some designer items, and took Ubers everywhere. Before I realized it, I'd spent over $50,000. Spending that kind of money without permission is completely unacceptable, Mia. What were you thinking?" I asked, my voice shaking with rage. "Why are you so angry?" she replied, sounding almost amused. I used the card because it had a high limit. That's all. Relax, sis. I'll leave the bill for you to handle. Then, without waiting for my response, she hung up, still sounding cheerful. I stood there speechless, trying to process what had just happened. After that conversation, Mia attempted to contact me several times, but I ignored her calls. She even left a voicemail saying, "I guess I really messed up this time." I was being so foolish. Her tone was so casual that it made me laugh bitterly. She clearly didn't grasp the severity of her actions. Later that evening, when I arrived home, my parents greeted me warmly. "Welcome back," they said, acting as if everything was perfectly normal. "How can you be so calm?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Mia is in a difficult situation," my mother said, sounding worried. "Why did you cancel the card?" my father asked. "Why?" I repeated, completely stunned by the question. "Because she used my card without my permission. As soon as the credit card company notified me about the charges, I canceled it immediately." Apparently, Mia had attempted to use the card again after it was blocked. When it didn't work, she panicked. After her repeated calls to me went unanswered, she turned to my parents for help. "Your sister is stranded in another state, and you're refusing to help her?" my mother asked, her voice heavy with disappointment. "I can't believe what I'm hearing. Are you serious?" I asked incredulously. "Just because we're family, does that make it acceptable to use someone else's credit card and spend $50,000? My mother shook her head, clearly disapproving of my stance. "I don't think you should be so cold-hearted," she said, looking at me with disappointment. "How can you be so unfeeling? This is why you never get to go on vacations." Mia even planned to bring back souvenirs for all of us, so what's the big deal? I was floored. Once again, they were taking Mia's side, even though she was blatantly in the wrong. I couldn't believe my own family thought it was normal to take someone's money without permission. "You two are unbelievable," I said, feeling a mix of frustration and betrayal. "How can you possibly think this way? Are you delusional? Mia is out there living it up without a care in the world, and you still expect me to be understanding." I pulled out my phone and played the voicemail my sister had left. Mia's voice came through loud and clear. "Make the card work again. Mom and Dad's cards are maxed out, and I can't use them. You're so stingy, not even giving me spending money for this trip. How useless can you all be?" After hearing Mia's angry message, my parents fell silent. Their anger toward me quickly evaporated, replaced by shock. They rushed to their bedroom to check on their own credit cards. A few minutes later, I heard them shouting in panic. Curious, I went to check on them. Their faces were flushed with frustration and disbelief. "I can't believe Mia used my card without asking," my father muttered furiously. "After everything we've done for her, this is how she repays us." "She even took our bank book and all our cards," my mother added, looking hurt. I feel so betrayed. Now they get it. When it's their money, suddenly it's a problem. "Oh," I replied coldly. "Wasn't she just being thoughtful? Didn't you say she was buying souvenirs for you and enjoying herself for your benefit?" My parents looked down, finally realizing how wrong they had been. "Well, our money is still safe, right?" my mother asked hopefully. When I saw how quickly their attitude changed once they believed their own money was secure, I felt profound disappointment. "Well then," I said, raising an eyebrow, "why don't you just increase your credit card limits and pay off the balance? Let Mia keep using the cards for all those souvenirs she's planning to buy you." "That's impossible," my mother replied, shaking her head sadly. "We don't have any savings left. What are we going to do? Mia is stranded with no money for food or anything." After a moment of heavy silence, my father turned to me with a pleading expression. "Olivia, please," he said, his voice soft and desperate. "We'll start fresh. We promise to work together to support this family. Please help Mia." I let out a bitter laugh and asked sarcastically, "Help her? What are you talking about? Does that include actually supporting me too?" Moved by my father's words, my mother suddenly knelt down before me, her face full of remorse. For a moment, I was shocked, but then I just felt a deep sense of disillusionment. I let out a dry laugh. "Isn't it a little late for apologies now?" I asked. But my mother continued pleading, her voice filled with sincerity. "I swear I will change. I'll do my very best to support everyone from now on. I won't treat you or Mia unfairly ever again." Despite everything that had happened, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the situation. After my parents returned to their room, I took out my credit card and stared at it, still uncertain about my next move. A few days later, I came across a credit card with a valid expiration date that hadn't been used yet. I turned to my parents and suggested, "Why don't you give this card to Mia? And why not take a family trip to Hawaii together? You'll all have a wonderful time." My parents were ecstatic with the idea. They immediately called Mia, and everyone began enthusiastically planning for the trip. I even booked their flights online, watching as they excitedly discussed their upcoming vacation. I smiled to myself, concealing my true intentions. After everything was arranged, I made a private phone call to a specific number. 7 days later, when my parents and Mia returned from their Hawaiian adventure, Mia greeted me with a huge smile. "Big sis, thank you so much for letting us enjoy Hawaii. It's unusual for you to come pick us up at the airport. Were you hoping for some souvenirs?" "Sorry, I didn't buy anything." It was evident they had an amazing time. They looked completely relaxed and happy, showing little genuine gratitude for my assistance. Seeing their carefree attitude, I knew it was time to execute my plan. I could barely contain my satisfaction. "Looks like you all had a fantastic time," I said casually. "Was that the last grand moment of your lives?" Mia frowned, confused. "What do you mean by last?" "Well," I said with a knowing smile, "I've decided to sell the house. It's all set. I've already sent our belongings to a new location, and someone's coming to pick us up soon." My parents and Mia stared at me in complete shock. Then they noticed the "for sale" sign at the entrance of our home and realized I wasn't joking. "Olivia, what is this? Did you really sell the house?" they demanded, their faces pale with disbelief. Facing their stunned expressions, I continued calmly. "Actually, a real estate agent has already finalized everything. I had a college friend who had been interested in purchasing this house and land for years. Every time they inquired, I always declined because I believed it was important to keep the property in the family. But recently, I had a change of heart. I realized that selling the house and living independently would finally provide me with the freedom I needed both financially and emotionally." My parents were livid. "You can't just sell the house on your own. That's illegal," my mother protested. "This house belongs to your father, not you." I remained composed and replied, "Oh, I see you're upset. But what if I told you the house and land are actually in my name?" They both stared at me in shock. "What? How is that possible?" they exclaimed. I folded my arms and explained, "Dad, do you remember a few years ago when you couldn't pay the property taxes and came to me for help?" He hesitated. "I agreed to pay them, but only under one condition: that the house's ownership be transferred to me. You signed the papers back then, remember?" My father's face fell as he recalled the truth. "Ah, that's right," he muttered. "I never left this house all this time because it was already mine," I continued. "I was just waiting for the right opportunity to move you all out so I could sell it. It was challenging to find the perfect moment since you were always around, but while you were in Hawaii, I finally had my chance." Everyone gasped, finally comprehending what I had done. As I mentioned earlier, I went on calmly, "Your luggage has already been sent to your new home. You don't need to worry, a pickup will be here soon to take you there." "Pickup? What do you mean?" my mother asked, still looking bewildered. I smiled. "Grandma is waiting for you all. She's really excited to see you." "Wait, Grandma? You mean my mother?" my dad asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Yes," I confirmed. "I spoke with her, and she agreed to take you all in. She even told me to send your luggage ahead." I smirked. "Get ready, because you'll be making authentic Italian pizzas and cleaning up at Grandma's restaurant every day." My parents and Mia looked horrified. "We can't go to Grandma's. We don't want to." Mia cried. Oh, really? I raised an eyebrow. Well, you can do whatever you want, but without a house or jobs, how do you plan to survive? And don't forget about that massive credit card bill. My mother's face turned ashen. What do you mean? She asked nervously. I smirked. You thought the credit card was in my name? I watched my mother closely and said, You really should have checked whose name was on the card. No way, my mother whispered, her face turning even paler. She quickly pulled out the card and looked at the name on it. Her eyes widened in shock. Wait, this card is in Mia's name. Exactly, I replied calmly. The credit card I gave you was one I found in Mia's room. It was the first card she received when she started her first job, but since she quit shortly after, she never actually used it. Mia gasped as she realized the implications. What? I spent way too much. What am I supposed to do now? She cried, panicking. I shrugged. Well, since the card is in your name, you have no choice but to pay it off. And all of you will have to work hard at Grandma's restaurant to cover your stay without causing any trouble. Mia continued complaining, but our parents remained silent. They knew they had no alternative. They could only wait for Grandma to arrive. When she showed up, she took them all to her house and restaurant in Chicago. Under Grandma's strict supervision and with the help of her experienced staff, they all learned the value of hard work. Initially, they struggled tremendously. They even shed tears trying to keep up with Grandma's discipline. But gradually, they managed to repay the $50,000 that Mia had squandered. Grandma also took a portion of my parents' salaries to reimburse the expenses I had covered all this time. As for me, I finally moved into a cozy apartment closer to my workplace. I was finally living alone again, enjoying the tranquility and independence I had craved for so long. I didn't have to worry about anyone else's demands or complaints. One evening, as I stood on my balcony watching the sunset paint the city skyline, I felt a profound sense of relief. I was finally liberated from the burden I had carried for so long. For the first time in ages, I could breathe easily. But there was also a faint hint of loneliness, a small emptiness that persisted despite my relief. Just then, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and hesitated when I saw Grandma's name. Taking a deep breath, I answered, Hello, Grandma. Her warm voice came through the line, filled with its characteristic strength. How are you doing, dear? I smiled slightly. Yes, I'm fine. That's good. Good, she said, her tone comforting. And in that moment, I knew I had made the right choices after all. I wanted to talk to you about Mia and your parents, Grandma said over the phone. They're beginning to change, especially Mia. She's helping out much more with the work, and your parents are also starting to reflect on things. She continued, Olivia, I know things have been incredibly difficult for you. I think I understand a little of how you feel. Family can sometimes feel like an overwhelming burden, but it's also something we should try to support. I hope that someday you'll be able to forgive them. I listened quietly, hearing both concern and determination in Grandma's voice. There's no rush, she added. Take your time and think it over when you're ready. I understand, Grandma, I replied softly. I'll take my time and consider everything. After hanging up, I stood by the window, gazing out at the city. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, and the city lights were beginning to twinkle as darkness enveloped the skyline. Inside, my emotions were mixed anger, sadness, but also a tiny spark of hope. Returning to my room, my eyes fell on an old family photograph. In it, Mia and I, still young, smiled alongside our parents. I remembered the joyful days we once shared and felt a pang of longing. If only things could return to those simpler times. But reality reminded me of how much everything had changed. Weeks later, as time passed, my life settled into a steady rhythm. At work, I took on new responsibilities, leading a major project. In my personal life, I felt more at peace. One evening, just as I was finishing up work, my phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. After a brief hesitation, I answered. Hello, this is Olivia. A soft, uncertain voice replied, "It's me, Mia." I was surprised. "Mia? What's going on? Did something happen?" She paused before responding, "I'm sorry for calling unexpectedly. Actually, I wanted to ask if we could meet in person. There are some things I'd like to discuss with you." Her voice sounded different, softer, more humble than I had ever heard before. I hesitated. "Why do you want to meet?" I asked quietly. Her voice, though shaky, was calm and sincere. "Big sis, I want to apologize from the depths of my heart. Just saying it over the phone doesn't feel sufficient. That's why I want to meet in person to truly and sincerely say I'm sorry." Hearing the honesty in her voice, I remained silent for a moment. "If it's too difficult for you to meet with me, I understand," Mia continued. "I just want to respect how you feel." After a long pause, I finally replied, "All right, let's meet next Thursday at 4 p.m. at the cafe near the train station." "Really? That makes me so happy." "Thank you, big sis," Mia said, sounding relieved. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath, trying to clear my thoughts. I wasn't certain if meeting Mia was the right decision, but deep down, I hoped it would lead to something positive. When Thursday arrived, I got to the cafe earlier than planned. Sitting at a table, I felt nervous, my heart was racing, and time seemed to crawl by at an agonizing pace. Finally, the cafe door opened, and Mia walked in. She looked different, her face wore no makeup, her clothes were simple, and most strikingly, her eyes held a sincere expression I had never witnessed before. She approached me slowly and began apologizing as soon as she sat down. "Big sis, I am truly, truly sorry," she said, her voice filled with genuine remorse. In that moment, I could sense that something fundamental within her had transformed. For a second, I didn't know how to respond. "Mia, I began, but she continued speaking, her voice trembling as she fought back tears. "Working at Grandma's restaurant made me realize how much I depended on you," she said. "I took you for granted all these years. I finally understand how difficult it has been for you, always putting us first and never considering yourself." Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. She kept apologizing, sharing how she had relied on me for so long without recognizing the burden she had placed on my shoulders. She even opened up about her relationship with our parents and the valuable lessons she had learned while working with Grandma. I listened attentively, absorbing everything she said. With each word, the anger and sadness I had harbored for so long began to dissolve. Her sincere words brought an unexpected sense of relief. When she finished, I took a deep breath and said, "Thank you, Mia. I've taken your words to heart." Afterward, we spent hours catching up, discussing everything that had transpired in our lives. It felt like a significant step toward rebuilding our fractured relationship. As we prepared to leave, Mia handed me an envelope. Inside was money she had saved from her hard work at Grandma's restaurant. "This is just the beginning," she said, looking me directly in the eyes. "I'll continue doing my best." Holding the envelope, I felt a warm sense of pride for the person Mia was becoming. Months later, I visited Grandma's house again, where I finally reunited with my parents. They each apologized sincerely, and I could see that they too had changed, just like Mia. That evening, we all gathered for a family meal, something that had once been a rarity. For the first time in ages, it felt comforting, like we were finally a genuine family again. I felt the warmth of family surrounding me once more. I knew I couldn't forgive everything immediately, but seeing my family striving to change gave me hope for the future. As I prepared to leave, Grandma pulled me aside and shared some words of wisdom. "Olivia, you've grown strong, and that strength is important. But don't forget the kindness you still carry in your heart. That's what truly matters." When Grandma embraced me, I couldn't contain my emotions, tears filled my eyes. In that moment, it felt like a new chapter with my family was finally beginning, and the heavy weight I had carried in my heart began to lift at last.